Hi, it's Snorgle. Welcome back to Exploring Minecraft. This is where I just hang out. What are you doing here? This is where I just hang out in peaceful Minecraft. Try to discover it. I have not played Minecraft all that long, so I'm just trying to discover it while I talk about a particular topic. And today's topic, I thought would be dealing with toxic people. And it's like all different kinds of toxic people in your life. And in my life too. And sometimes there's people who are just mean, you know? They're just mean to be mean. There's other people who you can't trust because they don't act in good faith, you know? There's some people that this last one doesn't seem toxic, but it is. There's some people you just spend, every time you spend time with them, and you can't explain it, you just end up emotionally drained. And there's no particular reason for it. You just end up drained of your life energy. And so how do you deal with this type of thing? Well, there's a couple of different ways, but let's talk about some things that are important first. And that's, I firmly believe that everybody deserves compassion. You know, I strongly believe that. Even people that are toxic, you know, because it must, I just feel like just the way things work, right? Life is a pendulum. There's only as many good things as there are bad things. And everything has an equal and opposite reaction, if we want to bring, you know, Newtonian physics into this. And I feel like it's the same with toxic people. If you act that way, if you act toxic, there's consequences internally, not just in the external world, although that's probably true as well. But there's also just consequences internally that eats away at you. It makes you feel worse as a person. And so I would just think it's a really sad way to live your life, is to be that kind of person, you know? So they deserve compassion. And I also strongly believe that people can change. I may not wait around for that change, but I accept people trying to change their lives for the better. And what do I mean by I might not wait around for that change? Well, you know, I think that there's two different kinds of mushrooms. Huh. So there's a how do I say this? I think that you have to protect yourself and you have to not get involved in some things. Ooh, that's a long drop. And so there's this idea that you have to, a lot of it is just being mindful. What does that mean? Well, I mean, mindfulness is a large topic. But what it basically does is allow you to know what your boundaries are. Like, so what are boundaries for your interacting with people? And if someone's being mean to you, I'm saying these boundaries, I'm setting are very broad, but if someone's being mean to you and they're consistently mean to you, maybe you just say, nah, I'm just not going to be around mean people. I'm just going to avoid mean people. If I am around them, I'm not going to accept their meanness. I'm not going to allow it to affect me. I can acknowledge it, but I'm going to avoid having it affect me. And that, again, is certainly easier said than done, but it is possible. And I believe that it's something to really work on very hard. And so how do you work on that? Well, being mindful, I think, is being aware. The way I kind of like to think of it is, imagine that instead of, you know, somebody being mean to you and you getting mad and allowing it to affect you negatively, you just don't accept the meanness. Just don't accept delivery. And I'll give you an example of this. I'll give you an example because I really like this. I'm not Buddhist, but I like this story about Buddha. And it's, you know, when Buddha achieved enlightenment. Oh, it's raining. That's interesting. I didn't see what the sun went. Doggone it. Anyway, when Buddha achieved enlightenment, he was actually quite famous. He was a celebrity, as it were, which is funny, right? But he genuinely was. He was the first person to achieve enlightenment, and he was very, very, very famous for it. And so he would wander. He wasn't in a particular place. He lived in a somewhat nomadic lifestyle, right? And depended on the type of Buddhist he was at the time, the type of person, I don't know what it's called. I guess the type of culture that he was from, he depended on people to feed him. People would give him food, and he had followers, of course, and when he achieved enlightenment, he was extraordinarily famous. And so he was walking through this small town, and people recognized him. I was like, "Oh my gosh, Buddha! Can we just like gain some knowledge from you?" And Buddha was like, "Sure, let's go outside of town, and I'll sit under a tree, and we'll just have a nice conversation." And so they did, and they were having a conversation. There was one person in this town, though. There's one person in town that thought that Buddha was a fake. He thought that he didn't achieve enlightenment. He was a grifter. He was conning people, and he was going to expose him. And so this man came and literally just yelled at Buddha for a long time, 45 minutes to an hour, just yelled at him and said the most abusive, awful, mean stuff to him. And the whole time, Buddha just sat and listened to him and smiled and genuinely seemed like he was listening to what he was saying, but it wasn't affecting him at all. And finally, after this time, the guy got tired and probably a little frustrated because it wasn't his big plan was not working out. And Buddha says, "Can I ask you a question?" And the guy says, "Sure." And Buddha says, "If you give a gift to somebody and that person refuses that gift, who does that gift belong to?" And the guy says, "Well, it would belong to me because I bought it. And so if the person doesn't accept it, the gift belongs to me." And Buddha says, "I don't accept your gift." And so there's a couple of things that we can unpack with that story. The first thing we can unpack is that Buddha isn't accepting the negativity coming from this person, because when somebody acts means to you, they're trying to inflict negativity on you, right? That's kind of the way it goes. That's the way it is. They're inflicting negativity on you, and they're trying to do it because maybe they think it makes themselves feel better. It doesn't, by the way, it doesn't, but maybe they think that. But there's a couple other sides of this too, though, because yes, they're trying to inflict negativity on you. This is true, but also if you don't accept delivery of that, they're doing damage to themselves. Like everything that they thought that they were going to try to do to you to make you feel bad and do everything else, they just did to themselves. So he's trying to give you this mean, horrible gift, and you don't accept it, and he's the one stuck with it, right? They're the ones stuck with it. And I think that's a really, really good story. And of course, it's obviously easier said than done, but let's unpack that a little bit. Because I think it's important. And part of that is being mindful. So being able to look at something and not allowing the actions of others. This is important. Not allowing the actions of others to affect you, right? You have to be a little bit detached. And it's completely achievable. You have to, a lot of it is setting boundaries. So knowing what your own personal boundaries are. And it's interesting. I know that there's a lot of misconceptions about that, I think. But like personal boundaries are there's things that whoa, that's going to fall. Hello, Mrs. Carroll, how you doing? So personal boundaries, knowing what's acceptable and what's not. And when somebody's mean to you, they're doing it to try to make you feel bad, right? There might be different motivations, but in general, people do that because they're trying to make you feel bad in one way or another, trying to negatively affect you from an emotional and a personal standpoint. And I think that just not accepting delivery of that, and you don't have to sit there. I don't think you have to sit there and be like Buddha and listen to the man, but not let it affect you, because that's very difficult. It's not impossible, and it's certainly a worthy goal in life, like from a personal growth standpoint. I think that's really a great goal. But one of the things you can also do is with your boundaries, when someone starts to be mean to you, they start to do that. If it's possible, you can just remove yourself from the situation. Just excuse yourself very politely and leave. And that's the way to deal with some toxic people. But sometimes, like if you're dealing in, let's say work or school, there might be some people that don't act in good faith, right? And you can use some of the same skills that we just talked about, but there's some other things to deal with people aren't dealing in good faith. And sometimes when people don't deal in good faith, what I mean by that is maybe they say something that isn't completely true, or they set up something to try to make it seem like it's going to be better for their favor, right? It's going to favor them better. They're not acting in good faith. They're presenting something as fair, and it's not fair. And I don't mean like cheating in a game or something. I'm talking about, just a conversation or a life event or something like that. It does work well with games too, though, if someone's trying to cheat in games. But so how do you deal with that? Well, one of the things I think is that maintaining a situational awareness and in the nicest way possible, right? In the nicest way possible, just acknowledge exactly what's happening. And there's a couple of different ways of doing that, right? One is just look at it and say, like, I know somebody who used to work as a software developer, and he talked about there was this one manager who's only interested in velocity, and what velocity means is just how fast your team is perceived to go. Right? It's nothing about quality. It's nothing about solving users' problems. It's got none of that. It's a terrible metric to run a team on, and it's generally frowned upon. But this manager thought that it was the best way to go, and so they would present things as if they were really solving users' problems, but they clearly weren't. They were just trying to do the easiest, simplest thing they could because it felt like it made them look like their team was doing more work than they were. And so one of my friends' things would do is when they'd bring this up, he would just bring up, oh, this is just all about velocity because you're not doing A, B, and C. So what you kind of do is sometimes when people do this stuff, it's easy getting into the trap of 9 times out of 10, when somebody's not acting in good faith, the way they try to accomplish it is by kind of hiding some cards under the table and pretending, and nobody says anything. Because it's the way that most people do that, it can be confronting, right? And people don't like that. And I'm not saying to confront. I'm not saying be like that. I'm not saying you're cheating, or what I'm saying is to just very calmly and nicely explain the entire situation objectively. So all the cards are out on the table, and now it's difficult for them to cheat. It becomes and the key with this is much like with dealing with the toxic people. The key with this is maintaining a detachment from their actions. Don't allow their actions to affect you emotionally and to affect you as a person, right? I think that's important. And if you do that, and again, part of this is also just setting boundaries, because there's a certain amount of that just happens in everyday life. And people aren't being mean or about whatever. It just happens. Like it's a thing. It's 100% thing. It just happens. That's fine. But you need to be really clear what your boundaries are. And it reminds me of, like, we'll go back to Buddhism. If you look at Buddhist imagery, I don't remember who this is, but there's an image of a man with a flaming sword. And it's not people think, oh, Buddhists are pacifists. That's not true. There's been entire wars fought over Buddhism. So I'm just saying, like, some Buddhists are pacifists, but some are not. But the point, the symbolism of that is not inflict harm on others. What the symbolism of the dude, I wish I could remember his name, with the flaming sword is protecting yourself. That's your boundaries. You have this hard outer shell that prevents negative stuff from getting to you, and inside you have your squishy, soft, compassionate heart. Because again, get back to it, even people who are not acting in good faith, they're kind of village can't tell. They're worthy of compassion. Everybody is. I had this is slightly off topic, but I'll talk about it anyway. Where I work, there was kind of a famous person who died. Not at my work, just in general. And it was, I'm not saying a hugely controversial figure, but there were some people who did not care for this person who died. And that, for no other reason than just history. There's a history, and I don't want to say who it is because it can be whatever, but I remember this person going on, and this one person at work going on and saying, nobody should feel bad about this person dying. And I just, but people deal with people's own beliefs, cultural, spiritual, deal with loss in very different ways, whether they know them or not. And you're asking people to not feel something, you know? And I don't necessarily think it's fair, you know, because a Buddhist believe that everybody is equally deserving of compassion. You know, saints and sinners alike. And that's important. Everybody's equally deserving. And I believe that. Again, I'm not a Buddhist, but I like that aspect of them because it gels with my own personal beliefs. Does it seem like hazy to you? This must be this biome. I haven't been to these biomes that often. It's really interesting how they set the light colors. So setting boundaries and personal boundaries and thinking of those as armor, you know? And if we're in Minecraft, think of those like netherite armor, you know? It's not impossible, but it's very difficult to hurt you. Very difficult to pierce that netherite armor, your own personal netherite armor. And inside, you're this lovely, passionate person who deeply cares and is really nice and really cool, you know, and wants to help people and wants to see that everybody is really, that the world's a super chill, cool place, as cool as it can be, you know. Don't delude yourself, because that's generally not the case. I'm not saying it can't be. I'm just saying it's not in a lot of cases. I don't know what biome this is. It's cool though. So how do we talk about how we achieve this? And one of the things I would say is I would practice mindfulness, and there's a bunch of different ways to practice mindfulness. And it just is a little bit of, it's sort of mindfulness. To me, mindfulness goes along with being detached, not allowing other people's shenanigans to affect you, right? And again, that's easier said than done, but I do think it's an important thing to do, just for your own personal well-being. And so if at all possible, the easiest way to handle this, if you're around somebody who's trying to be manipulative, or you're around somebody who's being mean, or you're around somebody who's, you know, like I talked about earlier, sometimes there's people who you can't put your finger on it. But every time you're around them, you're just emotionally drained when you leave. And these people are just kind of emotional vampires. They just suck your life force out of you. And there's nothing wrong with, in the nicest way possible, just excusing yourself and leaving and not being around there, because, you know, humans are efficient creatures. And if you're not feeding them what they want, there may be some protest at first, because that's not what they're used to dealing with, right? From you. Or from most people. Maybe they're really good at it. And for most people, they're not used to dealing it. But what's this? Wow. Ice. Huh. I think we can make a bed here. Don't you think? Yeah, I think we can make a bed here. Let's see. Let's go here. Another bed. Another wool. Okay. And we got this. Lovely. Nice. So, leaving the situation is a good place to start. Just not being around those types of people, because pretty soon they will stop trying to be around you. Or if it's maybe it's a family member, they'll just stop interacting with you in certain ways because you're not giving them what they want. And humans are it may not even be conscious effort on their part. Humans are very efficient creatures. We if we're not getting something, that's a cool color pig. Huh. We really do end up just not continuing that behavior, right? Because it's not getting what our goal is supposed to be. And then the other side is part of being compassionate about everybody. It's a lot easier to, whoa, look at the size of that mountain. Jeez. Whoa, ouch. It's a lot easier to be compassionate about people if you don't allow their actions to affect you from an emotional and a mindful standpoint. If you maintain a detachment, right? You don't let somebody's being really mean to you, just don't let it get, don't let it make you mad. There was a Frank Zappa quote. I'm not particularly a fan of Frank Zappa, but I do like this quote. And it's, let's get rid of that. I'll do that. He was talking about, if there was an article there's a chapter in his autobiography, and he was talking about a little bit about this. And I think the title of the chapter, I think, was all about schmucks. And he was talking about the idea of schmucks. There's somebody, and his thing was, and this, I thought this was a great analogy. It's like if somebody's a jerk to you. He said, don't let it affect you. He said, be like those Tai Chi fighters. Step aside. Just let the kick swing by you. He said, what's going to happen? At the most, it's going to make a breeze. And then he also said, but don't be mean to this schmuck. They've made their choice. They're the ones who have to live with it. And I think that's, again, in a weird way, that's compassionate, because it's sad when you look at someone who's made those life choices to do that. They're not happy. That's not how you live a happy life. That's not how humans get happy. They're profoundly messed up, sad people who perceive that the only way they can possibly get any kind of joy out of life whatsoever is not to lift themselves up, but to pull other people down. And that's sad. It just is. It's really, really sad that that's the way someone lives their life. And they deserve compassion for it, because, everybody's capable of so much more. I was thinking about this in terms of YouTube. And this is a little bit off topic, but not really. It's a little bit on topic too. There's a great video that just came out, I think today, maybe a couple days ago. And I don't remember who it's by, and I don't remember the title of the video, but it's about Mr. Rogers and Mr. Beast. What the scorp? How do I get down there? And not that they ever met each other or anything like that. It's just the difference in different types of people, and it really got me thinking quite a bit. I haven't watched the whole video. I watched about the first half, maybe the first. It's a long video. It's about an hour long, but I watched maybe the first 40 minutes or so. Right before he started talking about Mr. Rogers, which I'm a huge fan of Mr. Rogers. I'm by the way, exciting. I don't think it's out yet, but there is going to be a Mr. Rogers YouTube channel, which is going to stream Mr. Rogers content 24/7, which I think is just the best possible thing that could ever happen in this entire world. I'm just trying to get around this stupid. I know I'm not making any progress getting my Z factor going up or down, depending on how you look at it. There we go. But I want to get around that mountain. Ooh, lava. That's death. Let's just do that. So, and I was thinking about this too, because, with the compassion comes a fundamental respect, right? You don't necessarily, there's people you don't necessarily have to respect, but I think that there's an interesting point between something like, and it's not just Mr. Beast. I kind of think that Mr. Beast is the personification of reality TV on YouTube, right? And of course on Amazon Prime as well, which is actual reality TV. It's actual TV. And if you watch me for any particular time, and I don't own a TV, I don't watch TV. My primary entertainment is YouTube. And I mean, some other popular streaming channels, one that starts with a T. Sometimes, but not as much, but primarily YouTube. And, old school YouTube, in some ways, reminds me a lot of Mr. Rogers. And here's what I mean by that. I don't mean the soft-spoken things and hey, look, Sleepy Wolf. That's cool. I don't mean the soft-spoken things like that. What I mean is that as an adult, if you watch Mr. Rogers, I don't know how much Mr. Rogers is available in other countries. I know that a fair number of people in my community are not U.S. based or Canadian. Some are, but some are not. A lot of Europe and the Middle East. So I don't know how much I'm going to assume that you've seen some of Mr. Rogers. I hope you have, because I'm a huge fan. And, if you watch Mr. Rogers as an adult, it's profoundly clear when you see him interacting with children that he had a fundamental respect for children that you don't, I know, right? Surprising. that you don't really see with almost anyone. And there was an interview where he was talking about how when he was a kid, he felt like all the adults were telling him, you need to act like an adult. And he found it very difficult. And the reason it's difficult is because he wasn't an adult. He was a child. And so he tries to respect children. He passed away, of course. Respect children and respect them for what they are and show them respect. And I feel like old school YouTubers did that. They showed a fundamental respect for their audience. Like old school Jacksepticeye, and there's some who didn't, obviously, but old school Jacksepticeye and Markiplier, there's a respect for their audience in general. And they can, with varying levels, of course, but I feel like what you didn't have is trying to be manipulated to watch the whole video. There wasn't a manipulation there. There was here's this thing I think is really cool. And were they chasing the algorithm? Yeah, of course. They were. You can look at Jacksepticeye or Markiplier, and they probably Jacksepticeye more than Markiplier, I would say. But they start to do something, and what is that? That looks like a structure. What is that? You look at old school Jacksepticeye or Markiplier, and of course, there's times when they stopped doing a video, and Jacksepticeye has talked about this currently. That a lot of the reasons why he stopped doing that. Copper Nautilus armor. That's so weird. Why is there water? Wait. Why is there water when I open that chest? That's really odd. I don't understand at all. Anyway. Jacksepticeye would, just stop playing a video and he talked about it a little bit. It's because it didn't get engagement. Hold on. And maybe he wasn't enjoying as much, but more often than not, it's because it wasn't getting the views that he felt like it get. It wasn't getting the comments he felt like it get, so he stopped doing it. That's different. But I mean, like Mr. Beast, I think is profoundly manipulative, and once he figured out the formula, he just has this way to manipulate people into watching his content, and I think that's true. I do think that's true, and I'm not saying his content is garbage. I don't care for it. But I don't care for reality TV. I'm not the demographic to watch Mr. Beast. And I've watched some of it, in the past I've watched some of it. It's not a demographic thing for me. I don't care for it. I'd rather watch somebody who's like, look at this really, really cool thing. Isn't this cool? That's more my thing. And I think that shows a profound respect. And I feel like when people are trying to manipulate you, even YouTubers, it's not respectful. And it's we've talked a little bit previously about Minecraft and Minecrafters and how there's the kind of the Mr. Beastification of YouTube, and it's affected the Minecraft community. There's a view kind of that you can't just do this cool thing. Everything you do has to be a spectacle. Maybe we'll go over here. Is this where like the mushroom cow things are? Everything has to be a spectacle, and every spectacle has to be a bigger spectacle than the last spectacle. And I think that's a direct result of the success of Mr. Beast. It was not like that in the OG days, and obviously Google, YouTube rewards that. But it's a little bit of the same thing. I kind of view my channel as I just got just this year I got to be a partner, and I don't qualify for advertisement yet, but I qualify for super chats and things like that in my live streams, which is great. That's it's fantastic. I actually can have I can have a chat with an actual live person. That's shocking, isn't it? I haven't done it yet because I feel like I'm probably limited in the amount of chats I'm allowed. I don't know if that's true, but I just feel that way. But I just I dearly love every single member of my community, and they're all so fantastic and so cool, and just I'm not gonna name names because people, I want to respect people's privacy, but there's so many people who have just enriched my life, and it's that's what I think this way. Yeah, that's what I think that, look at that. Look at this thing in the, wow. How far does that go down? That's too scary. That's crazy. And so, and part of that is the same thing though, right? I feel like it's the same thing. That I respect the fact that it's so humbling to me that anyone spends some time watching my channel. It's so humbling to me, and I have other people who tell me that like I had somebody tell me that they play my videos when they drive home from work because it helps them, it prevents them from getting road rage. And it's so humbling to me that someone has made me a part of their life in a meaningful way. It chokes me up every time I think about it. But I don't feel like that's Mr. Beast. And I don't feel like that's reality TV. And I don't feel like that's TV in general, right? But I feel like that's what the internet should be. That's what we should be, and that's what we've kind of lost a little bit. And I think we've lost it because we've allowed not just people who are like, oh, look at this cool thing. We've let the executives take over. And the executives are just about how can I manipulate people into watching it so I can make more money. Which, to me is not a great look. I just, do something cool. Like, you'll find your audience. Like, that's the cool thing about the internet. Just do something really cool. You'll find your audience. It might take time, but you'll find it. And it might be small. My community is tiny, but I adore it greatly. And I think that a lot of other people feel the same about it. And the thing so anyway, I wanted to make that connection between toxic people and kind of toxic creators. And I don't mean in the sense of some creators are just absolutely terrible, horrible people, because they are. Like, you watch a YouTuber you watched growing up, and then it's like, oh gosh, they're a bad person. Like they aren't at all what I thought they were. Turns out they're a horrible person. That happens way too much. Whoa, okay. Let's swim this way. That happens way too much. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is just people manipulating you into watching their stuff because it makes them more money. And there was a bunch of stuff up recently about the YouTube PvP or Marlow, and just a bunch of slop channels that are just. Oh, that's so funny. Those two were together. It kind of looked like this white one had like a belt on. It didn't, of course, but it looked like it. And you see that a lot. Like you see a lot of just low effort, clickbaity headlines, clickbaity titles, regurgitating the same content, and I just don't think it's helpful, and I don't think it's a nice way to live your life. And so I try to practice in my interactions in my channels on YouTube and stuff. I try to practice what I do and what we talked about before, which is that everybody deserves compassion. And everybody deserves, but don't let people who are acting negatively, objectively, affect you. And I feel like it's the same with YouTube. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I watched this is a while ago. I watched a video. Oh my gosh. And it was talking about how, like, they were asking OG famous YouTubers, Panda, is that a baby panda? Holy crap, it is. Neat. They were watching OG YouTubers about how the way that they consume YouTube. And it was really fascinating to me because literally every single person they asked said, I don't let the algorithm suggest videos for me. I just discover it on my own. And I was like, holy crap. Like, preach. I that's exactly what I do. I don't use the homepage recommendations. I mean, sometimes you see something that is maybe okay in the sidebar, but in general, I just do a little bit of research, and it's fun. I mean, if you want a fun game to play in finding content, I'm rambling on a little bit more because I think I've made some pretty good points earlier, and so I wanted to touch on a couple of things too. I don't allow the algorithm to. I just do it myself, and I discover it organically. And sometimes it's Discord channels I'm on, like, oh, check out this cool video, and I discover a new creator, which is really neat. Other times, you see maybe creators do some collabs. I don't want to go through there because it's scary. And that's always cool, And it's interesting to watch, like, you watch like a YouTuber who you've been watching for a while do a collab with some not super famous YouTubers, but more famous YouTubers, It's always great to see. It's like, oh, good for you. Good for you. See, I don't know what that is. Whoa, what a colorful bird. So, yeah, I don't know what this. I think we were in one of those before, I think. Are those mangroves? I think they are. They are mangroves. That's the second time I've seen one in Minecraft. Really cool. That's really neat. I don't know what a mangrove looks like in reality. Like for realsies. I have no idea. But so here's a fun game to play. If you want to just find some really interesting channels. Like just watch a video. Maybe you want to watch a gaming video. Maybe not. Maybe you want to watch a video on how to make a good American style biscuit. Right? Because let me tell you, a good biscuit is dope. Just saying. Like a good American style biscuit is dope. It's really good. And or anything. Just any little thing, and watch the video, but then look on the sidebar and look like in the top 20 suggested videos, and choose the one that has the lowest views, and keep doing that. And boy howdy, you'll find yourself in some really, really interesting parts of YouTube, because YouTube is very, very big. What are there, like 500 hours uploaded every second or something? Like it's this huge amount of money, huge amount of videos and time. I mean, there's got to be someone whose sole job on YouTube is just more hard drive space, right? Like there's got to be. Like all they're doing is just building servers and storing more and more stuff. But try that a little bit, because it's really cool and you find some really neat things. And so I don't allow because I think that allowing the algorithm to tell me what to do shows me stuff that I don't care for and I don't like. And I find that it's really easy to go, well, that's what YouTube is, and just get used to it, right? And I don't think that's what it has to be. YouTube's a big place, and there's a ton of different creators doing different things that don't get pushed like the Mr. Beasts and that type of content does. And it's a fun, interesting thing, and I think that it could help your life. So, and maybe if you want to use the algorithm, go for it. That's fine. But maybe give this a try. Just give it a shot and see if you like it, because I have found that I just have a really cool number of really interesting channels that I follow, and some are popular and some are not popular at all. And it's really great to find that stuff. And it's kind of rewarding when you find somebody on your own that you haven't, like, nobody told you about them, Oh, that's gonna Jody. Oh, for Pete's sake, hold on, I'm an idiot. How do I do this? Okay, I can get down here. It's very rewarding. And again, it kind of fits what we talked about before. So if somebody's being mean to you or something, you should, be compassionate. But, respect the fact that they're a living thing, And they've made some choices that are probably objectively not the best choices for them, just from a mental health standpoint, right? They just make some really poor choices, and they've gotten themselves in a situation that they find hard to get out of now, because now their life's about trying to manipulate people and trying to make people feel bad and trying to whatever, so that they can try to get just a little bit of satisfaction from making someone else feel worse than them. And that's just pathetic, It's sad, because life is precious, and it's limited. Nobody lives forever. The very, very, very limited time that we are here on this earth. And we should try to do, not the most we can, because I don't believe that's true. But I think we should try to do everything we can to respect it and to be a good person. I believe that deeply. Set our thing down here. Go to sleep. And I think that's a pretty good place to end this video. Thank you so much for tagging along with me as I explore Minecraft and just discuss toxic people and how to deal with toxic people so it doesn't affect you negatively. Anyway, thanks for watching. I will see you next time for some more exploring Minecraft and a discussion about another interesting topic. I'll see you next time.